White Walls, welcome back to Year I Want to Talk About It. First off, this is Moon. Um, as I was just getting myself situated to start recording, I, you know, I lost my precious baby Tegan in October of 2025, and it's been, I don't even have words. But so now I just have a blanket with his ashes and his little sweater that is usually on my left side. And I was like, oh, I should maybe put him on my lap, like, does that feel good? And all of a sudden I got this flood of a memory of hang now. When I was in high school, I went to theater high school. I was in this play, The Curious Savage, and it was, I guess it was like a group home mental institution, and I think kind of like 50s era, I want to say. And in it, my character, I think her name was Florence. This is all like kind of trickling back into my brain space. She would carry around this like baby doll, but like then would also like leave it places all the time. And, her backstory ended up being like that I can't remember what happened, but she like had lost her son at some point, and it kind of drove her, well, in societal standards, to the loony bin. And then it like played out, in the 3D by her, carrying this little baby around, this little baby doll. So I was like, oh my God, it may. But meanwhile, the vigilance that I, have is, bitch can't change her stripes. And I continue to find that, and especially like in the last few days, it's really been showing up of like, I'm like, oh, who I was then is still who I am now. Like, at least I'm consistent. But it's also the rediscovery, the remembering of that. And that brings me into this other thought I've been thinking about this morning. We've got a couple trains that hopefully will connect and leave stations. About remembering, things have been coming up for me a lot. I pull like tarot and oracle cards. I find that super helpful. And today what I was thinking is, like people, religion that have problems with like tarot and the occult. And like they only have a problem with it because their whole thing is to like blindfold and brainwash and like gaslight into, subscribing and, being indoctrinated with their rhetoric and their concepts of what is moral and like, um, and the money that goes along with that. And I mean, and also in cults, and I mean, because aren't they same thing? And how so much in tarot or oracle decks or these kind of divination tools, they're simply mirrors of our internal stuff that we don't, in this society have a lot of words or engagement around or self-reflection about. And I mean, like, let's talk about how we don't have self-reflection in general or critical thinking. And that's like the stuff between cannabis and like divination tools. Those two united, like, we are unstoppable creatures because we finally get to remember what we already know, you know? And that's why you find legislation so tenacious about not legalizing weed in the US. And do we think that there's maybe a correlation? Because the only reason you'd say no to gobs and gobs of fucking money is that it's going to be a tool to harness people to be free thinkers and realize that this oppressive structure that we have been living in does not serve us in any fucking way, and that we don't need to continue doing this. We actually get, like, we can just free ourselves, you know? So again, the resistance has a lot to tell us. Like, why do you resist that so hard? There has to be a reason, because clearly this stuff helps people and it allows you to think in greater terms than this realm of existence. And right now, that's powerful. And to be able to be remembering that that is the power I hold within myself, and that I also really feel, and also everyone holds that, you know, there's no gatekeeping to divination tool, you know, like there's no gatekeeping to that. It's just you and the tools and how you choose to download that, or, you know, take what resonates with you and leave what doesn't. Even just being able to make that distinction of like, this doesn't have to be for me, and that's totally okay. That's important. Or like, why do I feel so wrong when everyone else clearly feels fine? Like, they're into this. Why does it feel so wrong for me? And instead of like staying and engaging and trying to figure out why I feel wrong or contort myself to feel, you know, to like conform to the thing that doesn't feel right for me, that doesn't resonate, then like I can just leave. Like, I don't actually have to stay and engage. I reference that I've been watching like YouTube card polls and like channeling stuff. And I do find that when I'm in a transitional phase, or like I'm learning a new skill, or I'm like discovering my interest in a new skill and then thusly like wanting to learn how to do that, YouTube is like my constant companion. And I don't know if y'all know this, but it's one of my favorite factoids. And because I'm a little bit like a human incarnate pop-up video, if you know, you know. um I might have distracted myself too far off the trail. Did I? I'm gonna catch it. I'm gonna catch it. Oh yeah, okay. YouTube fucking exists because of Janet Jackson's nip slip at the fucking Super Bowl. And I'm not even gonna begin to pull at those straws because I do want to talk about it, but another time, another place. And if you want to talk about that, get at me. Slide in those DMs, send me a message, whatever. Smoke signal me, what have you. So YouTube, the creator of YouTube was like, I wanted to see that nip slip basically on a loop. And so thus YouTube, our national treasure, has been born. International treasure. So yeah. Now the station is murky. We're in a delay. Maybe there's a delay. All right, I'm also like beverage, love to have assortment of bevies, so I'm just going to tell you what I have on deck. I've got a Zevia. If you like it, you like it, and you're among a small group. Tell me if you do, though. I do want to know because I need to be seen in my Zevia love. Um, Vanilla cola. I've got a basil green tea and honey in the tea decanter. And I've got some water. Okay. So, the big thing I wanted to pop in and talk about is, okay, so my pal D sent me this song this morning while I was like looking up this tarot deck that I have that is oh god, she's the little magnetic. God, I have to fix some things. This tarot deck, metaphysical cannabis oracle deck. I was like, I want to know who like made it and like if there's any lore about it, because it continues to be. I got it pretty randomly, and it's like published by Liminal 11, I think. They like produced it, which I really like that. I like the decks they do. And so anyways, I was looking up the two artists who did this, and their stories were really cool. The artist like gave some process details and like a couple of sketches of like, the initial idea, then like what it kind of like tightened up to, but it was still sketches, and then like the final card, and then also like talked about their like back end system of like they had this Google sheet and like things were like updated, and then like the what is the girl's name? Oh, Maggie Wilson, and the illustrator goes by Edge, and I'm not gonna venture to butcher their name. Just that she had it really delineated in a way that like Edge was able to just like intuit the cards and really tap into flow. Flow meets flow. Yeah, just a really cool article. I'll try and remember to link it in the description, so you can go on this little rabbit hole journey with me. So I'm reading this article after I had a really good card pull, of just kind of, and what I'm working on is like reading them all together. I'm definitely still on book for, that's just, but the more and more I work with this deck, the more I'm like, this is just, it really resonates. And there's like cards I've never seen that come up. And, I like the magic of that, but it's like, the magic is from me because I'm finding the significance in it. So like, I don't know, but also like it's energy. That is always inevitably going to be ethereal and woo woo, I guess, if we have to delineate it like that. But I'm like also done doing that. Like there is magic in this world because there's energy and because we give it artistry and beauty and significance, and I'm here for it. I've also been realizing I'm like, I need more like friends who fly freak flags like constantly and like always have. I was on YouTube, and something came up in the stream and it said Melanie Martinez something. I can't remember what the thing was that like grabbed me, but I was like, oh fuck yeah. And I don't know who that is. So I watch it, and it was just this like incredibly compelling, again, like very resonant like thing that I'm like, whoa, this was clearly meant for me, you know? And I've been finding that on the YouTube, like channeling Oracle tarot deck pull too, the videos that show up. And I'm like, this is some connected kind of wild shit. And again, where I'm really here for that because like it helps me feel like I'm not so isolated and alone because I am choosing to like disengage from things that don't serve me, you know, like yeah. So that's been really cool for me lately, but also making me realize like the things I do want moving forward look so different. And like of course they're going to, because like my life is this huge chapter of my life and my existence is different now. And I have to like relearn how to do everything again and would do it differently also because it's like I'm so steeped in like regrets. That's also been a theme that's been coming up for me the past few days of like I have to find a way to forgive myself. You know, like for everything, but especially for like the choices I made around Tegan, which like in retrospect are so hard to sit with. Um, and I just live in so much of like, you know, this state of like desperately begging and like willing to give anything to have him back to, you know, just like berating myself for like how I shouldn't have done it. You know, I should have just like left and given it more time. And, you know, I have to find a way to forgive myself for making the choices I did when I did. And then know that like next time I don't know, like I I have the opportunity to think about it and do it differently. And I hope that I will, you know, should there ever be a next time like that. Um, I mean, I do have Moon Kitty. And she's like, this bitch is crying again. Um, Also, sweet developments in our new companionship is that she really likes to get under covers, which is like, that was Tegan's bread and fucking butter. And you'd have to tuck him in. And again, like one of those things that I didn't realize is like, it really, it's an action that's important to me to care, you know, to just even the act of like, I constantly want to tuck her in. And like she's not there yet. A little bit. She's kind of into it. I can't tell though. It's like she's like, oh, she needs it, so I'm gonna acquiesce to her request, or if she's genuinely into it. Um, but you know, I mean, for 18 years, I was like tucking in this like precious little baby, you know, and just like within an inch of his life, you know, just like the perfect little comfort bundle, so cozy and like, oh, you know, like when you don't want to get out of your bed in the morning because it's just so like perfect and like perfectly soft and like, you know. And that it was like my total honor to provide that for that sweet, sweet baby. And just the amount of like contact, you know, like our heartbeats were like constantly together. You know, he slept with me, he slept on my chest, like up until the end. And I am really grateful for that. But yeah, to not have that after 18 years is a fucking insane feeling, you know? And I have been like, wow, my life has really been stripped down to like the bare bones, you know, and like getting fired from my like band-aid job that I wasn't happy at, but I like didn't quite have a next stone to jump to, so I wasn't, you know, I was looking, but I didn't have a thing yet, and I just wanted to have something solid to jump to. But I also am like, well, maybe that is just not my lot in life. And another one of those things of like, just because that's like what society says we need to have, like I'm used to taking a leap of faith or like getting shoved and like finding out if I can fly or not, or like if I can like grapple to a tree root, whatever that looks like, scramble up some scree. And like while that is stressful, and I would love to eliminate that stress from my life for like ever, because especially the last few years, but so much of my life has been this like, oh no, what am I going to do now? And it's always around money and work and like me needing to either like choose my like peace or morality or like whatever it is. I don't know. But I would love for this not to be the thing. But, that said, is everything's really coming down to like the studs. I'm at my studs. And instead of feeling the isolation of that and like the kind of barrenness of that, I'm hopeful that I can shift my perspective to see like that just is a blank canvas for me to like make my own story, and that's what all of this has been for, of course, and so that is a perfect segue, believe it or not, into my topic of the day, the real reason, the impetus to pop on. So my pal D sent me this song, and then I listened to it. It was great. It was like the Lover Girls, Olivia P. Brown. I'm not gonna look it up right now. I'll try and put it in the notes. And then I was looking at her other stuff, and I see this album called Reclaiming, and I'm like, that's my language. That piques my interest. And so I'm listening to it and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. This is good. The lyrics, that's always my like, I love a melody. I love a lyric. I'm really trying to get better about hearing the music as a whole, but more and more, I just notice like I have my little blind spots. And in certain circumstances, I guess too, because like if I'm not really resonating with the lyrics, or like like in a metal or like a screamo band, then I'm like really keyed in on like the drums and the guitar, and like that's more relevant to me in those settings, because I'm like the lyrics, there's no deciphering, so it was just like really pinging for me. And so then I go to look at like the artist like track info, and it's like top to bottom, lyricist, producer, like I want to say Olivia P. Brown. I might be wrong. I will rectify in the comments or the whatever description. And so, and then like I'm like, well, I want to know more. Tell me more. I ask a lot of questions, and so if I can't like ask the question, and I just like Google it, right? And I see this like there's an article, a little blurb that says that she uses AI, And of course, I knee jerk feel like AI is problematic, right? And I worry about the strain of resources that it uses up. And like, and I don't want to feed into that. I don't want to be part of the problem if I can help it. Um and that's something that I'm like, I can absolutely help that. Like, and meanwhile, like, it takes me a little bit, but I can be like, I disseminate information and spit it out like AI sometimes, maybe that might be a lyric. And but I'm watching this TikTok, or maybe it was a YouTube, whatever. I will also link it in the description. Uh, and the title is like something about like, I don't care if you don't like my use of AI or AI music or whatever. And so it was really compelling. And she's talking about how, she has all this music in her, and like she needed to find a way to get the fuck out. And I'm like, yeah, does that feel resonant? And my whole thing is that I'm really like, though I live in Nashville, the state I am at in my life and the way I spend my energy, I'm not finding the pieces of the parts that I need in order to make this like thing that's been living in my head for the past 2 years, like, come to life. And I've been relying kind of on like, it'll happen. But, I've really been struggling. And so I'm not out in these streets. And also, because like, that's not how I want to find those people either. I believe in, the pursuit of magic. That is a whole other year. I want to talk about it. I have a lot of theories. There is in New York, when I lived there in like 2012, 2014 to 2014, I would see these spray painted stencils on the sidewalk and other places that would say "In Pursuit of Magic." And of course, that pinged all my senses. And I have some deep theories about, I think I know who made that. And it's like pretty epic. And I can't wait to talk about it. So if you want to hear that as a year I want to talk about it, let me know. Holler in the comments. So where was I going? Pursuit of Magic, AI. So, she's talking about how, like, also her making this AI music doesn't mean that's like the only thing she's going to make, or that like it stops her from working with other actual artists, but it's like, it's the vehicle to get it out. And yeah, and then that just reminded me of the thread with the Melanie Martinez interview about how she was saying, like, she had always written songs and like her whole life, and this was just her thing. And the way she constructs these worlds and the world building that she does in her music, and like how it's so I want to say non-linear. I don't fully know because I don't know any of her music. But I am fixing to find out, of course. But just being able to talk about the world building, and so like rooted in her own self, and not being kind of jarred by like needing to fit into this persona of an artist. Like, she's an artist, and she has been able to have a career in which she sells out Madison Square Garden 2 nights in a row. And, from what it sounds like, has these kind of like wild, fantastical, like musical extravaganzas that is not traditional, and like people are here for it. And so what I'm saying, I think the threads that I'm trying to connect for myself and in this conversation is like, how do we utilize the tools? How do we utilize the master's tools in order to like free our own innate artistry so that it allows a thing to be presented to the world in which further networks can be built and grown and forged of like those connections, because like without the, you know, kind of proof of concept, right? You know, it's just some weirdo talking about how I want to make tropical country CUNT, you know? And like, and in a way where it's like this all lives in my head and I see it, but I can't show what that looks like and feels like to another person. I mean, unless they're on the spectrum and we're fucking doing some telepathy shit, which like, it's real. It's, you know, let's like, if we can accept that like our voting rights and reproductive rights get to be repealed, then like we can actually, we can believe in telepathy and also like start thinking about what that might mean in terms of the resistance. Just saying. Just saying. So, I'm also like, what? I don't know. And then I was thinking about like, what if there, you know, like, okay, so let's say I go on this track of like, all right, I'm going to use AI and like have an AI producer. And then I'm like, I'm going to want to name the producer. And like, that I feel like then there would also be a relationship formed in that, like, because that's how I exist in the world. And if I'm utilizing a tool, I'm going to have a relationship with that tool in some way. And because it is some, you know, like, it has this intelligence, I want to be conscientious of like what that might mean in the future. And also like what that does mean now of like, while it's not a person and while tools are usually inanimate, like this is in some weird nether region where it's like, I mean, it's inanimate, right? But then it's like, there's some amount of processing happening based on the information you give it. And so then isn't it also, is there, this might get a little tin hatty, but I just thought of this, like how in, you know, kind of tarot divination stuff, it's like your higher spirituality, your higher self already knows, and you're just like remembering that you already know, right? And that there's this like, so what if like AI were some amalgamation of like a digital higher self, and you're utilizing your own like your own innate knowledge or something, your own innate skill in the case of like AI producer. I don't know. Well, and then the other thing you know, theoretically have struggled with, and, you know, because I'm like, well, AI, like that's not the artist, it takes it away from the artist, you know. But again, where if you're not using it to make like cockamamie things that like don't further human existence or like your own spiritual like path, then like that's not the use for it, right? But if you're using it as a tool like to help social workers fill out forms or like do help people solve real problems that they can't with our human brain solve because we can't see all of the possibilities, then like that is valuable. That is like, that's a great use of that tool, right? And then I think about for, this artist and like potentially me of like how that could change the whole thing. And so back to, I'm gonna say Olivia P. Brown. I hope I'm not wrong. Back to her music of how she's like, people now reach out to me and like share their, stories, and like it's opened her up to all of these connections that she never would have been able to reach because AI was able to materialize like what she was hearing and feeling as music in her head and body. Like, not for nothing, huns. That's some powerful shit. And especially because I resonate so fucking deeply with that. Like, this thing has been like clawing at my insides literally for like 2 years. Like, bitch, find us a way to get the fuck out. And like, is this it? So I really, the environmental impact for me is definitely concerning. And I think, in terms of if I do end up using AI, which I mean, I need a solution to my problem. And if that offers it, like, I gotta try. Especially because it's like, well, potentially accessible. I gotta look into that. But there was a good thread, and I think I might. It's just. Oh. So the environmental impact is definitely something that I'm gonna have to weigh out, right? And maybe there's like some counteractive thing that I, like I'm gonna do AI and then I'm gonna, volunteer for some like water conservation or, something like that, where there's like, I think that maybe that's a trade-off for me, to mitigate the impact, in like the way I can control, right? The other thing is giving credit where credit is due. Wildly important to me. And so I think that would be kind of, like in my world building to create this, like the AI would be notably AI, but like would have, I'd want to name them, as producer. And the other thing I think about AI is it's like you're collaborating, like it's not without the input that you put into it. And I think she talks about that in the video too. It's like, it's not just like happening and you're just like, oh, mine now. It's like you have to input what you're looking for. And I think that could be really interesting in terms of, I don't know, I think about how I talk and write, and it's pretty, it's pretty specific to my tone and my voice, and that doesn't like change, and how that might influence like the output of AI. I'm definitely like, I gotta know now, because yeah, again, to have any kind of solution working, a way to get this stuff out of my head, and like also so that like when I see live music that I'm not just like totally green with envy, you know, like that is not the move. That's not the energy I want to put out. And it's not. But I do find that sometimes it's like it's you know what I find when it's hard for me is like when the music or the thing isn't resonating and like I'm like, "Oh, but they're still doing it." And it's like maybe not what I would consider noteworthy or like but like that's it's just not for me. But I think and you know, I have to constantly remind myself that comparison is the thief of joy and like we're not here for that energy suck. Um but in a backdoor way it does feel like it offers some more like permission and validation that like I can do the thing, you know? And I'm used to like radio silence, crickets, and empty rooms. So like that's not gonna be intimidating. And I think that's kind of where the kismet magic might come to is like if that is the case when I start out, if I get to that point, which like I must, I can, I will, I must. Um, any Stumble fans? Uh, so yeah, I'm like, there's nothing to lose, but m- much more regret to be had. And I just can't continue to live like that. Like, I have enough regret in my life. I have enough times I stayed when I should have left. Like, I'm ready for a different experience and I think I have the tools to support the experience that comes next. And I also have trust in myself that I'll be able to discern what is right for me and trust my sensors that go off when it is something that's not right for me, even if it doesn't make sense to anyone else but me. It's all that matters, turns out. Yeah. And I think, you know, this just came into my head of like, it makes me really grateful that I was able to be separated from my family, you know, like my biological family and etc. Um, because it's like that lineage was never going to be able to serve me in the ways that I needed to be supported and loved. And to be able to know that and know I exhausted every path to hopefully get into that and did not succeed, that like that doesn't have to be my regret anymore. And also that I get to use that as a really clear indicator to validate myself and how I move in the world and to use that as a rubric moving forward. And it's really going to help me to like spot what is not for me. Um, because, yeah, my blood family was able to make such distinctive cases of like shit that's not good for you. Mm. And yeah, as hard as that's been to accept over the years, I at this point I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful to be solo in every capacity, romantically as well. You know, the the things I've seen, the people that have shown me have really made it so hopefully I never have to go down those paths again or engage with that type of engagement ever again. Definitely forge some of my swords for sure. And I'm grateful to have those swords now. Hell yeah. There it is. So yeah, I've got some recon to do. I'll keep you updated if anything comes of my AI interludes. And I would love to hear any thoughts you have about any of this. But if you want to ping on some AI, like how do you use it? Do you find it egregious? Like where's your stance on it? And like, what do you think? Because the other thing I think about is I'm like, it's happening anyway. People are using it anyway, and they're using it for shitty things. So if I'm going to use it, I'm going to use it responsibly and as ethically as I can, and then hopefully have this other like trade-off of, environmental impact, right? And I had to just think about like, I'm like, oh yeah, the amount of trash I have hoarded as craft supplies right now, I don't know, maybe that's kind of my societal environmental trade-off, is that like my art is already out of recycled materials usually, but like I started sculpting some shit in trash, and so yeah, maybe that's like the perfect circle. I'm pretty sure I saw them in concert. Sometimes I forget about that. I saw a lot of music in my youth. I'm very grateful for that too. That was fucking cool. Like yeah. The music. Turns out the music is what mattered. Isn't that Chumbawamba? Love it. All right, y'all. Until next time, thank you so much for being here. I'm sending you lots of love and self-empowerment and taking the unknown road now. If you know, you know.